Springfield's Talk 1041 and a good Monday morning, everyone. And I don't know if I've ever seen anyone that just is so winning as Donald Trump. It's amazing the guy isn't even in office. Some of the things that he's winning at don't necessarily have to do with the office itself. The folks over at ABC are apologizing to Donald Trump for defaming him, and they're forced to pay $15 million to settle the defamation suit, $1 million to cover his attorney fees. Evidently, the $15 million is going to go to his presidential library. It's like, how much
That's like
does
the
that
best
sting?
news all weekend.
How much does that sting? I'm gonna play some audio. People in the media, of course, are acting as though, wow, this is just gonna send a chilling effect. Well, if it sends a chilling effect to people who are in the media that are going to openly, falsely accuse someone of something that is absolutely untrue, this is all based around the George Stephanopoulos back and forth with Congressman Nancy Mace, in which he, it was a particular interview, numerous times falsely claimed that he was found liable for rape. And he specifically was not. There were two questions, and this wasn't a secret because the imagery of it was posted on the little ballot that the jury had. And it's, do you find the president liable of sexual assault, or I forget if that was the exact term, yes or no, and then rape, yes or no. So it wasn't even, well, we don't know for sure, so we can't say yes. They checked off no. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And Stephanopoulos on the Sunday morning show on ABC News just said it on numerous occasions, or it was in that one occasion, but said it numerous times, that Donald Trump was found liable by that civil jury of rape, which was absolutely 100% untrue. The media's, they're trying to, well, it technically wasn't true, but it sort of kind of was true. We'll play some of that audio coming up here. But point being here is, if, in fact, it does send a chilling effect that people in the media are going to be a little less likely to knowingly lie about someone, to falsely claim that they were found guilty of something that they were not found guilty of, then I don't think that's a bad thing. That's just me. At the same time, this is just absolutely delicious. There are Kamala Harris supporters out there that are going to social media with conspiracy theories as to how it is that Kamala Harris is actually going to be the next president of the United States. Now, the reason I find this to be so fantastic is because there were Trump supporters after the last election who were doing the same thing. And of course, they were presented as nut jobs. They were presented as dangers to democracy. They were presented as proof that Donald Trump was falsely convincing his supporters that he actually was, that there was some sort of maneuver that was going to take place that was going to allow him to step back into the Oval Office in that election. And now we have Kamala Harris supporters doing the same thing. They are out there, and I'm going to play some of the audio. What one of the Democrat theories among some of these supporters out there in social media is that J.D. Vance, if you notice, you haven't seen him a lot lately, except for, all the times that you actually see him. But in their world, he's disappeared. And that's because he is getting ready to turn state's evidence that he is going to blow the lid off everything, all of the crimes that Donald Trump has committed, and then that somehow means that Kamala Harris is going to be elected president of the United States, or be ushered in. There's a couple of other different theories as well out there, and so evidently there are some potential insurrectionists out there who are election deniers in the Kamala Harris world. We've got all that coming up right now, the latest news update.
I hope that whenever Trump does get that money from ABC, I hope he puts a little plaque up that says, "This part of my presidential library
Yeah.
is sponsored by ABC News."
I think that would be
Wouldn't that just be
perfect.
rich?
It could be a wing of ethics and journalism during the Trump years, devoted to something in that arena. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be fantastic.
I think that's maybe I'll message him and be like, "Hey,
Yeah, I
look, I
like it.
know that you're probably not going to see this, but this is what you should do."
It's just an idea.
The first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy with a high around 51. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
Anthony Carricker joined us on Friday out at Scramblers, just talking about some of the uncertainty out there, what's going to happen with the interest rates, and in some instances, it is anyone's guess. And sometimes you hear about interest rates going down, but that doesn't necessarily mean when it comes to home loans, because you've got a whole number of variables in there. Point being is, if you are in that position where you're thinking about getting a home loan or refinancing, reach out to them. This is what they do. This is what they know, and they also know what isn't known. Oftentimes, there's a lot of information out there that isn't necessarily accurate, or it's opinion presented as fact. And so they are going to give you the transparent view of what is going on in terms of interest rates, what potentially could happen, couldn't happen, and to give you the best information possible. So when it comes to making that decision, you will be well informed. I want a greathomeloan.com. That's where you get started. George Stephanopoulos and ABC apologized to Trump, are forced to pay $15 million to settle defamation suit. Stephanopoulos and NBC issuing the statement of regret as an editor's note at the bottom of a March 10th, 2024 online article about comments made earlier this year that prompted Trump to file the defamation lawsuit. The note reads, quote, ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos with Representative Nancy Mace on ABC's This Week on March 10th, 2024. Now, there are actually two components to that interview, that exchange, that were shameful. One of them is the fact that George Stephanopoulos tried to shame Nancy Mace as a rape victim for defending Donald Trump. He threw in her face during that exchange on a number of times the fact that, well, as a rape victim, how can you support him? It is obviously, and it's understandable why this component of the interview that took place is getting the attention, it's because of the settlement that has taken place here. But it was pretty shameful that there was not more attention paid and not more criticism, particularly from the left, that she was being rape shamed by George Stephanopoulos, kept throwing in her face, well, as a victim of rape, as a rape victim, telling her that because she was raped, she should not support Donald Trump. I mean, the appalling nature of that, yet it seemingly, the culture at ABC News, that's perfectly acceptable to, in a public forum, in front of millions and millions of viewers in the moment, and then, of course, subsequent, as it would be aired later, and, you know, you have discussions about it, it resides on the internet where people can watch it at any time, taking a rape victim and using her rape against her. The other component to this, obviously, was this defamation. And ABC News deciding that it was probably in their best interest to go ahead, admit that they were wrong, cut a check in order to cover Donald Trump's legal expenses, and then $15 million, which apparently is going to go to the Presidential Library. Now, as you can imagine, there are a lot of people who work at ABC News who are not very pleased with this. I mean, they are fit to be tied. They are just as fit to be tied as MSNBC employees were when Joe Scarborough and Mika went down to Mar-a-Lago to visit with Donald Trump. I mean, they just cannot believe this insanity, nor can many of the other networks. This is a discussion regarding the settlement on MSNBC.
Yeah, I think it's a concerning sign, Melissa, that ABC buckled here. They were just about to take the deposition of Donald Trump this week, which would have helped to solidify their case, which is already, in my view, a strong case. The phrases that they objected to was when George Stephanopoulos repeatedly said that Donald Trump had been found civilly liable for rape. Of course, what the jury actually found was sexual assault, but the judge said that in the way the terms are commonly understood, Donald Trump did indeed commit rape. So it's a matter of interpretation about what that word means to most people.
Well, actually, the way George Stephanopoulos presented it, no, it was not. This is not what George Stephanopoulos said. And by the way, the judge is an anti-Trump judge who was upset that he was not able to preside over a rape conviction or you know, Trump in the civil case being found liable for rape. So he goes out there, well, it basically is rape. Actually, no, it's not. If it were, do you know how we know that it's not basically the same thing? Well, one, ask a rape victim. I'm sure that if most rape victims had the option of either full-blown rape or a non-rape sexual assault, they probably would have picked the non-rape sexual assault, despite the claim here in the media that they're pretty much the same thing, according to this anti-Trump judge. But beyond that, we know that they're separate, and they're not, quote, basically the same, because it was two separate questions. One, is Trump liable for sexual assault? Which, incidentally, the whole case was absolutely absurd anyhow. I know most of you know this, that this woman was a nut job. She portrays herself as a nut job, bragging about going on a spending spree with the money, claiming that she didn't remember exactly when this happened, but then going on a tour with the dress in which she claimed that had happened. And then she said, well, I think it was in this year, but the dress hadn't even been designed until a year or two after that. So, and no witnesses, of course. I mean, the whole thing was an absolute sham. But aside from that, and there were two questions asked. Was Trump liable for sexual assault, and was he liable for rape? And the jury said no to rape, yes to sexual assault. So they're not basically the same thing. Now, if George Stephanopoulos, during the exchange with Nancy Mace, had said, well, according to the judge, it's basically the same thing, that would have been a totally legit presentation to make from, you know, his perspective, because a judge did say that. The judge is wrong, but a judge did say that. But that's not what George Stephanopoulos said. George Stephanopoulos said the jury found him liable of rape, and they did not. So this isn't something that is, chilling when it comes to freedom of the press. This isn't something that ABC had a strong case on, because if they thought they had a strong case, they never would have settled this. These are people that hate Donald Trump. Clearly, they felt that they had absolutely no option whatsoever because the case against them was strong. Every time, you do hope that there is a special dedication in that presidential library, in whatever capacity that this $15 million that they've got to kick in is going to cover. I think that would be just a brilliant and hilarious idea. Coming up, delusional Kamala Harris supporters clinging to Kamala inauguration fantasies. Conspiracy theories abound amongst Kamala Harris election deniers who believe conspiracy theories. By the way, how come Kamala hasn't come out and told them that none of this is true? Should it not be incumbent upon her to dispel the rumors that somehow she actually is going to be sworn in as president of the United States? Isn't her silence in this contributing to the rumor mill? I mean, if we're going to approach this the same way that we approach Donald Trump and the fact that, he wasn't quick enough to tell people that they shouldn't believe these things and they shouldn't do these things, and that because he wasn't quick enough and vocal enough to stop it, that meant he was supportive of it. So if we're going to take that approach, then Kamala Harris sitting back while her supporters are spreading disinformation on social media, by the way, that somehow Donald Trump is not going to be sworn in, but Kamala Harris is. This is very concerning. We'll have some of the audio coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 417-447-KSGF. Grizzly Industrial, South Kansas Expressway and Battlefield between now and Christmas, lowest prices of the year. Oh, don't let the name Grizzly Industrial scare you. They are open to the public and have professionals that will help you pick the right machine for your home shop. Or maybe someone last week had texted in. It's a great place to get books for different woodworking instructions and projects. That'd be a great gift idea there. You can stop by, 0% financing, and there's no commission, so you don't have to worry about being pressured. Some people don't mind that. I don't like that at all. I tend to stay away from places like that. So knowing that there's no commission is certainly something that is inviting for someone like me. Over 600 machines on display, and it is the largest woodworking and metalworking showroom in the world. Over 35,000 square feet of machines on display. Grizzly Industrial, South Kansas Expressway, and Battlefield. Delusional leftists clinging to Kamala inauguration fantasies. Yes, there are Kamala Harris supporters out there who believe that she, in fact, is going to be sworn in. Here are a couple of different Democrats spreading what some might say is disinformation on the internet.
JD is hopefully working with data. So this is just a rumor. Okay, rumor. However, I'd like to point out that your girl here, me, on August 8th, I posted a video predicting this. Leaked the video in this video. But I just wanted to say, hot damn. I'm telling you, I fucking knew. I felt, if it's true. I don't know. We don't know if it's true. But I wouldn't be surprised because we've seen JD Vance in since the election.
All right, so there's one. Yeah, part of her claim is that no one has seen JD Vance since the election. Clearly not true. I'm sure that video, of course, was posted before the Army-Navy game, but he's been out there. I mean, it's not like, I guess this is fueling the Democrat fantasy amongst at least some of the Kamala Harris supporters that he is hidden away somewhere, and he is providing all the information about all of the things that Donald Trump has done illegally, and he has intimate knowledge of it, which, if you just, the thing about so many of the accusations that the left comes up with, whether it was as far back as Bush or just any Republican, is that if you just think of logistics, oftentimes the theories don't even make sense, even if you believe Donald Trump in this instance is horrible. So, for example, why would J.D. Vance have all sorts of information on, provable information on all of the things that Donald Trump has done in the past as past president, and it's just going to be able to nail him, that the government has him in hiding so that he can provide all this information? Why would J.D. Vance have that information? Prior to being selected as Trump's running mate, it's not like J.D. Vance was in the Trump world. In fact, you may recall, because the media loved to point it out over and over again, for a long period of time, J.D. Vance did not like Donald Trump at all. Thought, like a lot of people did, he was going to be the next Hitler. In order to believe that, which even the fact that we're entertaining this notion, but it's for the point of highlighting how absurd and how little effort that the left often puts into thinking some of these things through. J.D. Vance, he wouldn't have any information on Donald Trump. If this were, a case as they're hoping that Donald Trump's going to get nailed because of all the things he did illegally, prior to the presidency, I guess, during the presidency, all these things. Why would J.D. Vance have any knowledge of that? It's not like he was part of his inner circle. You're not talking about somebody who has been in Trump world for 20 or 30 years, his right-hand man who is there in all of the closed meetings. I mean, he was running for president with him, and during most of the time they weren't together anyway because they were out there, covering as much ground as possible. So aside from, if you're just able to set aside how much you hate Donald Trump and you believe he's done all these things illegally, if there was in any way this scenario in which somebody was going to start providing evidence that was provable evidence of crimes committed by Donald Trump, J.D. Vance would not be the person. Another Kamala Harris supporter on her theory as to how it is that Kamala Harris is actually going to be sworn in January.
What I just found. So for Kamala HQ or Harris Waltz emails, this is typically the bottom of the emails that you're going to receive from them. This email was sent to blank. Thanks so much for being a supporter. Paid for by Harris for president. As you can see, I got this one on November 5th. Obviously, election day. I just happened to go look at one now on the 9th, and this is what I see. The top part is the same. This email was sent to blank. Thank you so much for being a supporter. But now they're making a point to include the Harris Victory Fund. But that's not all. Will be allocated to Harris for President's recount account. All those feelings we had, something's not right, the math is not mathing, what's going on? Don't worry, Prosecutor Kamala is on the case. I'm not surprised we haven't heard anything about a recount yet because there are a couple states that are not finished yet. I'm sure that the Harris campaign was really trying to look at the final numbers before they said, okay, let's go. I'm going to go donate, but just a reminder, as the saying goes, when we fight, we win.
Now, because you and I aren't in that little world, the bubble that they create of delusion, we may think, well, does anybody even pay attention to these people? Who are these people? There's a response out there from a person who was an active member of the Kamala Harris presidential campaign, and she's posted a video begging Kamala Harris supporters to stop believing this stuff. Some gal who describes herself as, let me get this straight, a disabled queer something. I forget exactly how she describes herself, but she shot a video as she was moving back home to Kansas. Her car was filled with stuff, and she's like, believe me, nobody wants to believe that Kamala is going to be president more than I do. I'm terrified of Donald Trump as president, but you guys got to stop spreading this disinformation. So it evidently is significant enough that you've got people within the Kamala Harris world trying to stop them from spreading this disinformation. Alas, I suspect that it will not work. Also, more than a dozen congressional Democrats, in an apparent bid to present themselves as election deniers, are going to skip Trump's inauguration. That next. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. This song always reminds me of one of the Christmas party episodes of The Office.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, where Dwight's really,
Really getting it?
yeah, he's really getting into it. Creed, I think, was too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need to start watching The Office again. I get my fill through this morning show of you
Yeah.
every day mentioning at least one episode.
Gosh, what is that? All he does is watch The Office.
You're like, yeah.
Well, there's particularly over the last 4 years, there have been so many absurdities that are like reflected in episodes of The Office, because the people who wrote The Office, particularly when it came to any sort of demonstration of complete lack of leadership, with Michael Scott and the absurdities of things that he would do and say and promises he would make, and you just over and over again you find these things coming out of Washington D.C., particularly the Biden administration, all these promises that are just you think it is an episode of The Office. I mean, that it's. So, yeah, I find myself constantly being like, well, that's an episode of that's a Michael Scott quote. That's a this.
You're not wrong.
I know.
The first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy skies with a high around 51. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
Santa's Angels gifts need to be in tomorrow, right?
That is correct.
So if you could get them in today, this is the point which Sarah starts getting really nervous.
I am panicked. We are
Panicking.
missing, I think, 44. Is that what I wrote on your little sticky
Oh, yes,
note?
44 presents or 44 kids, I guess we should
Mm-hmm.
say. So, and now I know you maybe think, well, I don't have mine in, but it's not due till Tuesday. Yes, we understand that. But Sarah just starts to get very worried whenever we get this close and there are this many gifts that have not been returned yet. So if it is convenient for you to do it today, as opposed to waiting till tomorrow, then I would encourage you to do that.
I appreciate that.
Well,
I would like to not have a panic attack.
I would like you to not have a panic attack as well. According to a report, more than a dozen congressional Democrats plan to skip Trump's inauguration. Representative Benny Thompson, Democrat, Mississippi, said, for somebody who he said he's going to lock me up, I don't see the excitement in going to his inauguration. He was on the January 6th committee. Trump referenced the fact that some of those people should be in jail, which is true. Ilhan Omar, you could see why. I mean, she's one of the most vocally anti-Semitic members of the Democratic caucus, and Trump is one of the most pro-Israel, pro-Jewish presidents we've had, so that one goes without saying. Representative Delia Ramirez, Democrat, claimed as a Latina she does not feel safe attending the inauguration. Okay. Adam Smith, Washington, he says, well, he almost never attends inaugurations, explaining he's only been to 2 during his 20 years in office, 28 years. Axios reported 13 House Democrats do not plan to attend the big day. 20 are undecided. 44 are planning to attend. On the Senate side, 10 Senate Democrats remain undecided. 11 are confirmed to be attending on January 20th. Representative Steve Cohen, Democrat, Tennessee, said he cannot be, quote, part of that spectacle as someone who was locked in my office as the insurrectionists tried to overthrow our government. Yes, that's what happened. In the meantime, I mentioned earlier Donald Trump. It's just winning, 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 winning. ABC News admitting that they were wrong. They regret the fact that George Stephanopoulos lied about Donald Trump on air, falsely claiming that he was found liable of rape, having to now pay or agreeing to pay $1 million of Donald Trump's attorney fees, and then $15 million to go to his presidential library. Then you have President-elect Donald Trump notched a 2-point net positive favorability rating on Thursday, according to Real Clear Politics average. It is the first time Trump has held a positive approval rating in his entire political career. His favorability now stands at 49.4%, up from 39.9% since January 2024, about 10 points greater. Trump's favorability rating fluctuated since entering politics. Before Thursday, his favorability rating peaked in December of 2016 at 44%, and again in April of 2022 at 44%. His favorability rating improved 5 points from December of 16 to December of 24, indicating he's more popular as he readies to take the oath of office a second time. Since, of course, he left office, Democrats have tried to imprison him, kill him, do everything else under the sun. I think there's a number of reasons that Trump's favorability rating is, for the very first time, a net positive. And some of that is reflected in, for example, the way that the current administration is dealing with, the drone issue. And I've got some audio of John Kirby on with Martha McCallum. And I mean, it's just incredible when you listen to these people. And there is this real juxtapositioning I think people see with an administration that doesn't really ever do anything other than try and cover up messes. When you listen to them after a while, you realize they're not really saying anything. When it comes to dealing with situations, it is try to ignore it as long as possible and then only address it whenever you feel that you have absolutely no other options but to address it. And then Donald Trump is just wake up as soon as he can every morning and just start getting stuff done. Get it done, get it done, get it done. Donald Trump is the sort of person, and I think even people who don't like him are able to recognize that he doesn't believe in wasting time. Even when he's playing golf as president, there's generally some sort of purpose to it. And I do think that he recognizes that long term, you've got to give yourself little breaks in order to be the most productive as possible. But these are oftentimes on the golf course. He's doing the one-on-one thing with people. This is where he's very good. He's deal making. But Donald Trump is a guy who is all about get it done. And if the way that we approach it doesn't work, let's try another way. And it's just the last 4 years, people have felt as if we're dealing with an administration that is evasive, that is in denial, that tells us constantly the things that we're worried about are all in our head, whether it's inflation or the border or these drones or a spy satellite or a turned over train in Pennsylvania or forest fires out in Hawaii. These are all situations in which the people began saying, where are you? What are you going to be doing? The train derailment was one of the real first stark examples of this, and it's such an easy thing really to deal with, particularly from a political party that portrays itself about being completely environmentalist, and this was a real legit environmental disaster, and just totally absent from it until citizens began standing up and began screaming, and then elected officials started to do the same thing, and the administration found itself where they couldn't have any sort of press conference. Karine Jean-Pierre could not come to the podium without being peppered with questions about, why are you not doing something? Where is the president on this? Where is Pete Buttigieg on this? Same thing happened out with the fires in Hawaii. Same things happened with some of these people that are still without homes in the aftermath of the hurricane. You could go down the list. And after 4 years of that, seeing Donald Trump where he's already getting things done, where you already have meaningful advancements towards potential ceasefires between Russia and Ukraine, where we already are seeing Hamas talk about giving up hostages. We're already seeing Iran back off a bit and call off, as the New York Times had written a piece after Trump got elected, that they told Hezbollah, hey, back off a bit, Trump's back in office. So these real meaningful things with positive results are already starting to happen, and Trump's not even in office yet. And those two things compared, that the 4 years we've experienced versus what it is that Trump is already getting done, I think that there's a segment of the population that they don't even like politics. They can't stand the politics. And what is it that rhetorically people always say in Washington? Well, the American people, they just want us to get things done, right? Well, that's what Trump does. And I believe that's why he is experiencing a net positive gain, or a net positive opinion rating of him for the very first time in his life of politics. People are ready to actually have somebody in charge once again, and who is trying to get things done, whether one agrees or disagrees with them, but not for political purposes, not running on getting something done, but then getting in there and just doing the same thing over and over again, but is willing to talk about doing things that no one has ever done before, or they have done these things before, but they haven't really been, or they've talked about doing things before, but they don't actually do it in a meaningful way. And Trump just resonates with people as someone, if he says he's going to look into doing something, may not actually happen, but he certainly is going to explore the idea of it. At the same time, you have what I would call normal people in the Democrat Party that are heavily involved, many of which are fundraisers, that are increasingly out there talking about how much in trouble as a political party they are. How the Obamas have made themselves irrelevant. And how many of them, and I'm going to play some of this audio. It's pretty stark audio from one of the Democrat mega donors who, on a podcast, is noting how many of them are beginning to, when they're seeing who got the money from the fundraising, how the rich got richer, and how they were lining the pockets of people in Florida when they had no chance of winning Florida, and beginning to question whether or not this was just a financial scam, that the Democrats knew they weren't going to win the White House, but that they had to keep getting money from Democrat voters, and they kept pretending as if they thought they had a shot so that they could funnel money to their big donors and to the big activists, and these different because many of the donors at the same time, they run these firms that do a lot of the marketing, and so there's this recognition here that many people within the Democrat Party are beginning to wake up to, and to talk about that this whole thing, in their minds, may have just been a scam to get money out of hardworking Americans on the belief that they had a chance of getting Kamala in the White House so that they could funnel it to their rich friends. And this is what they're saying out loud. We'll have some of that audio coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. one of the more outspoken Democrats has been a mega donor, and she's done a number of different interviews in which we played some of the audio. Lee is her name, and she, among other things, has spoken in the past about how detached the party seems to be from recognizing that there was a real problem here. After the Kamala Harris video went viral, in which she appeared to be drunk or under the influence of something, where she was talking to supporters, Lee was on doing an interview in which she said there was actually another call for the higher end donors, and she expected to hear a recognition of here are what we recognize as the mistakes that were made. This is the landscape, and this is how we plan on moving forward. And she said instead it was like just this delusional parade of people talking about how wonderful Kamala Harris was and how transformative she was, and it was, she said she was just shocked by the whole presentation. She was on with Mark Halperin on his podcast. It was within the last couple of days, and Mark Halperin had asked her what she thought the Democrat Party could do in the short term to start turning things around.
Oh, yikes. Well, I want to tell you now, having been to holiday parties in DC, people are pissed. And just echoing what Megan said, you're totally right. People are pissed at Obama. There are people who are now multimillionaires as a result of the Harris campaign, and we know exactly who they are. And I just want to say that $500 million in advertising went to just 4 well-connected Democratic firms. This whole thing is deeply incestuous, and one of the firms is Bully Corporate. They made bank. We were advertising in Florida, where we had no chance of winning simply because of the advertising fees. This is a boondoggle. And I'm wondering if they asked us for millions of dollars. Remember how I told you about the dinner? Were they asking us for money 2 weeks before they knew they were going to lose? Because they realized for the next 4 to 8 years it was never going to come again, and they wanted to milk us for as much money as possible?
And I think she's asking that rhetorically, because the answer is clearly yes. See, this is what some of these people who have been in charge of fundraising are beginning to recognize here. And particularly when it came to some of the spending. And there were a lot of people that wondered out loud, why are they spending time and money? Why is Kamala going to Florida? And as this Democratic mega donor here is noting, that $500 million went to 4 different big-time Democrat firms that just line their pocket. Millionaires were made out of this. Millionaires. And she asked, rightfully so, was this just a boondoggle? Did they know? Which I believe the answer is yes. And I think, again, she's asking rhetorically that 2 weeks before the election, that they were going to lose, but they had to get as much money as they could from people on fixed incomes, from all of these people. It was just a boondoggle to line the pockets of their people, making some of them millionaires. And people have noted that so many of these, like the Kamala Harris and the Biden and these Democrats that once upon a time talked about Hitler, and all of a sudden they seem fine with Hitler. Why is that? And that's because their lives go on. This is all a game to them. And it's a way, as this Democratic donor noted, to extract money out of hardworking people so that they can line the pockets of their multimillionaire friends. That's how you end up with Oprah Winfrey and Beyonce and these others. And then, of course, a bunch of people whose names we don't know. But as she noted, $500 million getting funneled into the pockets of 4 influential Democrat-run firms. And when they're spending a lot of that money in Florida, a state that they had no chance to win, it does open one's eyes as to what was really going on there. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. coming up in the next hour, we'll have some audio. John Kirby's response to all of the questions surrounding the drones, and I think it is further, again, evidence as to why Trump is doing so well in terms of popularity, because you just hear the continual BS that comes out of this administration. That plus more. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also the KSGF app. A socialist apparel brand called Comrade Workwear is planning to release a set of most wanted CEO playing cards soon following the recent murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Comrade Workwear founder James Haar announced the plans in a TikTok video Saturday, crediting a follower with the idea, explaining that the cards would be the same as... Now, some of you will remember this. I actually have a pair of the playing cards still in cellophane. I don't remember how I got them at the time, but whenever we went into Iraq after 9/11, there were decks of playing cards that were created, and they had most wanted individuals. Saddam Hussein, I believe, was one of them, Houday Qusay, and then, of course, a number of different high-level individuals within the Iraqi government, Iraqi military, and these playing cards were given to those who were serving there in Iraq, and for the purposes of finding, targeting, and arresting or killing, and that is what this socialist apparel brand CEO is developing in order to pass out to other left-wingers for the purposes of tracking down and potentially killing these individuals. Haar explained in the video, that's what I'm thinking for the back of the cards. Basically, each suit is going to be like certain types of industries. So clubs are going to be like pharmaceuticals and chemical companies. The heart is going to be like retail and real estate, things that you need to survive. But if you wonder why real estate, if you look on the website, there is a shirt that refers to landlords as parasites because no one should be able to own property in this person's mind, other than, of course, the $30 shirts that he's selling. You are more than welcome to purchase and own those because, of course, that's revenue coming to him. Like most socialists, they have no trouble with money. They just want, they want to be the ones that have it and control it. Diamonds are going to be for tech and finance and media, and the spades are going to be for oil and war. Haar also developed cards for specific CEOs and encouraged feedback from TikTok users expressing that he wanted to launch the venture soon. Quote, tell me if you guys dig this because I want to put them out like ASAP, he concluded, so let's get some feedback. The business owner's reaction to Thompson's December 9th death echoed that of many social media users on the left. In TikTok videos, Haar described the New York City murder as good news, calling the assassin his effing hero. In a different video, the socialist businessman also described the general excitement around Thompson's death as awesome, but urged his followers to focus on the system instead of individual executives, saying that there's no amount of dead CEOs that's going to change the nature of capitalism, and no matter how awesome it is that, what's happening, we do need to maintain the knowledge that this energy that we're having, that's not going to change anything systemically. Shouldn't, I don't know, the President of the United States kind of, sort of address this? I mean, we have the specific targeting of a CEO for murder. You have many left-wing individuals that are openly celebrating it. Now, here in the United States, you have a business owner who's a left-winger, a socialist, like Bernie Sanders, that is going to put out playing cards, much like the playing cards that were developed for troops to have in Iraq, that have different industries and CEOs, specific CEOs on them. The idea being these are the people we need to get. This level of apparent coordinated violence and coordinated assassination, well, in this case, clearly coordinated attempts or encouragement at the very least. And this administration is saying nothing about this? Should there not be some condemnation, unless, of course, they're worried once again about losing support amongst their base? We saw how accommodating they have been to anti-Semitism. We've seen how accommodating they are to calling for the extermination of Jews. So I suppose we shouldn't be surprised when they are attempting, apparently, through their silence, to accommodate the calls to assassinate CEOs. Because after all, as Elizabeth Warren says, you can only push people so far. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy skies with a high around 51. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
All right, let's get a traffic update and a reminder also that tomorrow is the deadline to get those Santa's Angels gifts in, but if you can do it today, that would be extremely helpful. Otherwise, tomorrow is the deadline. And if you have adopted one or more kids off the trees and you are unable to follow through for whatever reason, just make sure that we know, and that way we can get that particular kid, we can get their wish list, get it to us, and then we can make sure that that child does not go without. There is a Local for Less Ozark coming up on Friday that is probably going to go out very quickly. It's food related. Five Guys for $12.50. You get $25 gift certificates. That will go live this Friday at 10 a.m. at KSGF.com. Five Guys burgers. I was going to mention here this company, Comrade Workwear, and the founder creating playing cards with different industries and specific CEOs of a number of different companies. And he notes that these are going to be just like the most wanted Iraqi playing cards that were given to troops during the war in Iraq. And the reason for this, of course, is because he claims that there's daily violence that working class suffers because of the decisions of CEOs and board of directors. And he, of course, presents this picture that because of all the woes in life are due to these CEOs, that there's violence and that people's lives are horrific and they are targeted. Individuals are targeted because of evil CEOs and board of directors. And then, of course, releases these playing cards that he fully acknowledges are to serve the same purpose as the playing cards did when it came to tracking down and in some instances killing some of the top Iraqis during the war in Iraq. But, of course, he does what Democrats always do. Now, I'm not saying anyone should do anything violent here. Quote, I'm not suggesting anyone should cause any physical harm to anyone, but I do want people to know who is making their life harder, who is stealing from them, who is deciding that a couple more percentage points of profit is worth the life of your loved ones. This is the caveat that the left always throws out there when they encourage violence, when they make it easier to commit acts of violence, when they give you a roadmap to the specific people that they want killed or assassinated. They either they cap it either at the beginning or the end with, now, I'm not saying that, you should commit an act of violence, of course. I mean, hey, violence is never the answer, but let's go ahead and talk again about how horrible these people are and really fan the flames. As Elizabeth Warren said, you can only push people so far. And isn't that a telling statement? You can't on one hand claim that you believe that you can only push people so far before they do something and then try to push them to that something. See, this is the admission of somebody like Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren that they know exactly what they're doing. She acknowledges that if you push somebody hard enough, they are going to do something like assassinate a CEO. Well, who's pushing them? The same people who recognize if you push someone hard enough they're going to snap are the people who are out there doing the pushing. They are the ones out there telling these people that are on the verge of being pushed over the line that their lives are going to be thrown into havoc because of Donald Trump, or that the reason that they have a loved one that was denied health care is because of the evil CEO. So it's pretty remarkable that Elizabeth Warren recognizes, in her words, you can only push someone so far, and then proceeds to push, 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 push. Oh, but I'm not saying you should actually kill these people. Oh, you're not. Now, there's been no real outrage over this. And as I mentioned, we haven't really heard anything, maybe we still will, from Democrat lawmakers or the White House. And some may say, well, this really doesn't deserve to be addressed. I mean, who is this guy after all? What do you think the reaction would be if some company that most people had never heard of, had a founder, had a president, a CEO, whatever his position is, and it was pro-life based and made a deck of cards of abortion clinics and abortion providers and handed them out to people that were pro-life and talked about rhetorically how horrible these people are and how they're murderers and how they prey on minority neighborhoods and fanned the flames talked a lot about self-defense and how just one of these individuals is responsible for thousands and thousands of lives ended. And if that person's life ended, think of all of the lives that would be saved. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and kill the abortionists. No, that's not what I'm saying, because violence is never the answer. But, they are responsible for killing tens of thousands of unborn children. By the way, here's a deck of cards, and here are where they work. And here are their names and their faces on the cards. Do you think that the media and the White House and politicians would sit back and say nothing? I think we know the answer. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. To further the point, well, first, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Emily, amazing to work with. As a first-time homebuyer trying to navigate the complexities and fast-paced market, Emily did a wonderful job helping us find that perfect home and stay positive, even in a very competitive seller's market. She was professional, knowledgeable. She didn't pressure us to look at houses that would not work or go over our budget. We absolutely plan on working with her again if we ever need a realtor. Cannot recommend her enough. Getting you into the right house, sometimes she is the little angel on your shoulder, because when you set out looking to buy a new home and it doesn't happen right away, the certain things that you in the beginning say, we really, really want this to be part of our home. We have certain requirements. And as time goes on, you begin to think, well, maybe we should let some of those requirements go because you are wanting to get into a house. And Emily is great about reminding you, now listen, I know that you're getting anxious and I know you want to find a home, but remember, this is a big deal. And you need to remember that you had a number of must-haves that you seem to be wavering on. So she's very good about keeping you. Now, of course, ultimately it is your decision, but point being, she's not there to try to sell you a house as fast as possible so she can move on to the next person. She recognizes the value in making sure that you get into the home that you wanted from the get-go. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. This left-wing CEO of this company, he's a self-described socialist, putting together a deck of playing cards that he compares to playing cards that were given to our troops when we went into Iraq so that they could identify and track down specific people within the Iraqi military and government, but he's going to do it for certain industries and CEOs of industries. Of course, he gives himself cover by saying, now, of course, I don't suggest anyone commits an act of violence. I just want to make sure everyone knows who these horrible, evil people are, these people that we would all be better off if they didn't exist any longer. And I noted that there would be a tremendous level of outcry if a pro-life person did the same thing with playing cards, but with abortion doctors. These same elected officials that downplay this sort of thing or act like, give the standard, well, of course we condemn that sort of thing, and then just want to move on and not focus on it. What reaction do you think they would have if someone created a deck of cards about them? Even though most of these individuals, or I shouldn't say most of them, most of us know at least some of the more high-profile individuals, do you think they would be so lacking in their outrage if they were put on playing cards? And it was put out there for the purpose of making sure that people know who needs to be taken care of? Speaking of Iraq, there is a news story about a lawmaker, or a number of lawmakers in Iraq that are considering legislation to lower the acceptable marriage age for girls into single digits. They are proposing to allow 9-year-old girls to get married. Now, this is being presented as, obviously horrific, because 11-year-old girls, it's largely recognized, just like 11-year-old boys, are not equipped to make those sorts of decisions for themselves. And that even if you find some 9, 10, 11-year-old girl who says she wants to get married, clearly that is something that has been put into her head by an adult. I would just say, as we recognize the level of outrage that is warranted, to try to legalize such a thing for a child, is it really any worse than, let's put it this way, how can we claim that a 9-year-old is not equipped to make a decision about marriage, but a 9-year-old is equipped to make a decision as to whether or not to have a sex change operation? I mean, how can you argue that 9, 10, and 11-year-olds are equipped to make changes about cosmetic surgery that will forever alter their body, pumping their bodies with chemicals in ways that cause all sorts of horrific side effects, many of which can never be treated in any sort of meaningful way? But we're going to stand all high and mighty and portray the people of Iraq and these lawmakers as somehow brutally dark and backwards because they say that somebody that same age should have the ability to decide whether or not she wants to get married? Now, I'm sure the response is, well, they would not actually be the ones making the decision. The adult would. Why does that not also apply to sex change operations to kids in this country? Trusted adults telling young children this is what's wrong with you and this is the treatment, and if you don't do it, odds are you're going to kill yourself. We think that is an environment in which a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old is going to be able to make a decision that they're not even equipped to make in the first place. One is just as sick as the other. Arguably, one difference is that you could at least get divorced. But much of the horrific damage that is done to these kids cannot be undone. It is forever. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy skies with a high around 51. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
I don't know why this week really, it feels like Christmassy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I just really kind of feel like we're in that mode, or I'm in that mode. So maybe it's because I finished decorating the tree.
Tell the listeners what I brought you this morning.
Oh, the corn dog ornament?
Yes.
Yes. Brought me a corn dog ornament. We were having lunch the other day and had this whole discussion about corn dogs.
I mean, like a 20-minute conversation
yeah.
about corn dogs. So I thought, you know what that man needs? Corn dog ornament.
It was the folks over at Greene County Freight, and Nancy over there. She loves corn dogs, evidently.
Well, maybe
like
I should have got her one too.
And she likes the same kind as I do. We're gonna talk. We just got in this discussion, and as much as I like corn dogs, I never really buy them for myself. I did at one point in time. Maybe there's something in my head, and I shouldn't let this stop me. But that as an adult feels I should not be making myself corn dogs for dinner. If you have a bunch of kids over, so if the girl child has friends over, it's like, oh yeah, I'll make a bunch of corn dogs and I'll eat some. But am I really going to, as an adult, be like, I'm making myself dinner and it's going to be corn dogs tonight?
Well, I do it quite frequently, so don't feel bad about yourself. You do it.
I think maybe I will get me one of those big box of. I like the honey battered State Fair ones that you can get. Those are my go-to. There's something. Although Nancy said for her it's mustard is they have to, but I'm a ketchup guy. I like the ketchup on them.
I like both. I don't discriminate.
Well, aren't you just so much better than the rest of us? La-di-da, so much better than the rest of us. We are going to talk with, I think we'll have Congressman Burleson in the next hour. And if we do have him on, we'll, of course, get the latest from him. Did we talk with him about the drones last week? I feel like we've been way ahead of the curve on this drone thing. We've been talking about this for weeks. And it's just something happened.
I don't think that we talked with him about
I don't think so either. Well, and here's the thing. Even though we've been talking about it, I mean, not incessantly, but brought it up a couple of different times several weeks ago, or at least a couple of weeks ago. There's just the dam broke last week, in which all of the sudden you had lawmakers saying we need some answers, and then of course you had the administration not giving answers or giving conflicting answers. And like just about every other thing that the administration is forced to address, there are days or weeks preceding it in which it should have been addressed. They should have led the way on it. But instead, citizens are online. They're posting videos. They're talking about it. The Chinese spy balloon from the beginning. I've been saying this feels like this is going to play out like the Chinese spy balloon, in which the administration is totally ignoring it, and people are with that, like that Chinese spy balloon, they were filming it and saying, what is this thing? This is weird. And because it got a lot of attention, people began demanding answers, and the White House downplayed it, pretended that it was nothing. Of course, it turned out they were lying to us the whole time about it. And that is it, that seems to be the pattern that this is following. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, this is China. We don't know the answers to these things, but the behavior of the administration, trying to ignore something, pretending that it's nothing, until they are forced to start talking about it. And that has just defined this administration when it comes to dealing with this stuff. Friday, John Kirby was on with Martha on Fox News, and McCallum, right? Martha McCallum. And I'm telling you, it was 10 minutes of the most frustrating listening and viewing that I remember having in a long time, and how I think she did an incredible job of just straightforward asking, these questions that are obvious, and at the same time, without being, I don't think she was rude or anything, but you really got the sense she's telling him, nobody believes what you're saying. I grabbed two segments of the 10 minutes to play for you, because I'm telling you, this exchange sums up the 4 years of this administration. And the first one overall is McCallum, and she's, asking Kirby about the drones.
And we are working on this very, very hard. We are now applying. There was an interagency conversation this morning about this topic, where we have now decided to employ some additional technology to New Jersey and some additional personnel to try to get a better sense of what these things are. And as I said yesterday, Martha, as soon as we know, we're going to.
No, I hear you. This is shocking. I got to tell you, this is shocking. Okay. And I'm not the only person who feels this way. This was happening at Langley a month ago. Okay. These people are not crazy. They're seeing these things with their own eyes. This is not normal behavior. They are not planes that are coming in one direction and they're heading into Newark Airport and then they're landing. Okay. We spend $824 billion on defense. We have the greatest intelligent capability in the world. So how can you stand there and say to the country right now, gosh darn, we just don't know what these are?
Because I'm not going to lie to you or to the American people, and I'm not going to say we know something when we don't. And we would never, ever stoop to think that an American citizen was crazy or nuts because of what they're seeing and what they're documenting. We're taking that imagery seriously, and we're doing the best we can to analyze it, and we encourage people to come forward if they have additional sightings and imagery. We want to do the best we can to triangulate it, but I'll be gosh darn if I'm going to stand up here and make up stuff that I don't know to be true.
We don't want you to make up anything.
Can he sound any more golly gee whiz? It's almost as if he's mocking himself. Golly gee whiz, where'd you go? Well, we're not going to stand up here and, we don't want you to make things up. But that then, of course, highlights the other problem, and that is that you have, if you're telling the truth, I mean, his position here is, the reason I'm telling you I don't know is because I'm not going to lie. Well, let's say that's the truth. That's not a good truth. This is where a lot of people have a real problem, because no matter the answer at this point, there doesn't seem to be any conceivable explanation that is a good one. Either they do know what it is and they're lying to us about it, or they don't know what it is, and that's very, very concerning. That in what she points out is supposed, with the budget that they have, and they probably even have access to more than the 800, however many billions of dollars she talked about, we should have the most advanced capabilities in the world. I feel like we are one of those tribes that's in the jungle that has never come into contact with any other human beings before, and somebody's flying things overhead and they're like, they have no concept of what it is. They have no ability. Maybe they're shooting some arrows at it or something. I mean, that is what it feels as if this administration has reduced us to, just a bunch of, helpless individuals that are so far behind the rest of the world when it comes to technology that he's like, golly gee whiz, I just don't know. She asked him about shooting the drones down. I want to play that audio. And again, now some are going to present many of these questions as being unsophisticated, but because of the total lack of any sort of answer, it is leaving people with these questions like why. And Trump has said, the government should shoot these things down. And so what the administration is having to deal with now are people asking specific questions as to why not do this. And that is forcing them to try and answer why it is that they're not taking the steps that many people think make sense to take. That audio next.
Take one.
Friday, Martha McCallum had what to me was 10 of the most frustrating minutes to observe with John Kirby of the administration talking about the drones. And, she pretty much laid out that people just don't buy this stuff. We don't know what it is. How can we not? She said this has been going on for weeks now. I mean, these things are over Langley. They're over a number of other installations that should be secure installations. And you all are just doing this golly gee whiz thing, and we just don't know what it is. And him pretty much singing that tune. She also asked a question that so many people are asking, and that is, why not just shoot these things down or shoot one down to see, what it is?
Why not just take one down and figure out what's going on?
Well, the idea of taking something down, again, you want to worry about public safety. First of all, we don't have enough conclusions to take that kind of a policy action. But let's just assume for a minute, Martha, that we did. I mean, you're not going to want to shoot something down where it can hit somebody's house or hurt somebody.
Well, the Coast Guard says that there are 30 of them following one of their ships in the ocean. So would that work?
I mean, again, we have to develop the policy options based on what we know we're dealing with here, and we just don't know enough to make those to take those kinds of actions. But my goodness, we're going to do everything we can to find out, and we're going to share as much as we can. I understand it's frustrating for folks.
Yeah.
It's frustrating for us. We want to know as well.
What does President Biden say about it?
He also has tasked the team to look into this and to be energetic in doing it to try to get answers. He saw some of these images yesterday. He has talked to his team, including his top leaders, including at the Defense Department.
Have you called in like AI experts or said, like, why don't we ask Elon Musk what he thinks, or brought in outside experts?
We're working really hard right now inside our in the interagency, and certainly supporting the FBI and DHS as they investigate this. And if we need to have additional conversations with people outside the lifelines, we certainly will do that. But I want to make sure I don't get ahead of the investigators and what they're doing.
It just seems weird. I mean, people, they're low. They fly fairly low, some of these. It just, I think, is amazing that the White House has no idea what's going on. I think that makes people feel really unsettled.
All right. So there's a number of things here that demonstrate that they are lying to some capacity. Now, you notice he's like, and this was the same excuse for not shooting down the spy balloon. Well, it might land on someone's house. Well, we gotta make sure that people are safe. Well, she notes the Coast Guard says that there's like 30 of them that have been falling over the ocean. There's no one who lives there. Well, that works. Shoot them down there. He moves on. He doesn't answer the question because it's a BS answer. If that really, truly, legitimately were a reason for concern, as she noted, according to our own government, there are moments in which they are over the ocean. No one's going to be harmed. He just moves on. The question, have you talked to anybody outside your little group here in the White House? Have you called in any experts? AI, Kamala could come in handy there, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, she's the AI czar. So why Kamala Harris isn't part of the brain trust trying to figure this out, I'm not sure.
She's too busy gaining the presidency.
Yeah. So she asked, okay, why have you Elon Musk or any of these people that this is, sort of their thing. They may at least have some idea. And for Kirby he's essentially saying, if we feel like we need to, if we get to the point in which we feel that we have to reach outside of the inside, outside of our own little, crafted group of people, then we'll do that. Well, what point is that on the map? You're telling me we're not there yet? This is what Kirby's saying. And I think Martha McCallum did an incredible job of, like I said, there's 10 minutes of this stuff, very frustrating, of, throwing, when he would make a comment to, I wouldn't say counter it, but ask him to elaborate on it. Of course, he would just continue to move on. But for him to say, well, we haven't tapped or asked for any outside experts or outside help because we aren't to that point yet. Well, what does that point look like? We have weeks of this occurring. We have what are supposed to be secured facilities that these drones are flying over. There was an international airport north of New York that had to close down for an hour. So now we're closing down international airports. I had the story somewhere there, but yeah, it was an airport, I think in New York State. It was about an hour north of New York City. Some international airport had shut down for an hour because of the drones. We have this, yeah, so they tell us, we have no idea what it is. At what point do you feel that it becomes necessary to talk to experts in these fields that are outside of your group of individuals, whomever those people are? We got the FBI, we got Homeland Security, but all of these people are saying we don't know what it is. So for John Kirby to say, well, no, we haven't reached out to a fresh set of eyes on this. If we get to the point we feel that we need to, we will. What is that point? Where is it? Because if we haven't hit it yet, what is it? After an attack occurs? And we don't, of course, know that that's in any way, shape, or form even remotely likely. But, of course, again, on September 10th, 2001, we also were naively skipping through the fields, not knowing what was about to hit us. This could not be a better way for this administration to put on full display their approach to the last 4 years in dealing with everything. And if ever this really is a gift to America, because if there are any Americans out there that are kind of sort of like, yeah, Trump, and I don't know, did we make a mistake? Here you go. This answers that question. Here is a reminder. A reminder on full display why the American people said, yeah, the last 4 years, we kind of need to go back to the way things were being done before. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, we've had quite a bit of rain over the weekend, and if you've noticed drips or leaks or yellowing on your ceiling, I want to recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, one of the best things about the Pyramid Roofing Company is that they are not going to try to upsell you or use scare tactics whenever they come out to your home. They know that getting a new roof isn't necessarily considered a fun purchase, so they really do try to make that process as easy as possible. From doing a free roof inspection to working through that insurance process with you to even helping you pick out your next shingle color, they try to make that process as easy as possible, and they really do try to take that stress away. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Prior to observing how the administration is now dealing with the drone situation, I had predicted, or I had noted, it felt as if it was going to be a China spy balloon reaction in which ignore it, pretend it's not happening, downplay it, act like people are just seeing things until finally enough lawmakers are speaking out because they're hearing from their constituents, and it's all over the place with social media, that they have no choice but to address it, and they're addressing it, of course, is golly gee, we just don't know. And so while I've compared it to Chinese spy balloon, Sarah noted that it does also sort of reminisce the days of the cocaine, and gosh, we just can't figure out.
Yep, hope this goes away.
Yep, the most secure facility, or at least it should be to some degree, in the entire country, and somebody can just leave cocaine laying around and no cameras see it, no nothing, nobody's got, it just, golly gee, we just don't have the capability of figuring that out. These people don't have the capability of figuring much out, do they?
That airport that you were talking about in the last segment, I believe it's called Stewart Airfield.
Okay. Yeah, I think it shut down for an hour because, and what happens, I mean, is that not of concern? An airplane hitting one of these drones, or a drone hitting an airplane and taking it down, a passenger plane? Is that when we're going to step things up a bit and start talking to outside experts, which this administration, according to John Kirby, hasn't done yet because it hasn't gotten to that point? Somebody had noted that they heard what seemed like a plausible explanation, and I heard this as well, that perhaps it is us or it's somebody on our behalf, that there has been some form of perhaps weapon that is believed to have been smuggled into the country, whether it be an EMP or dirty bomb, and this is an attempt to quote, I heard the term sniff it out, that it's smelling around, and but they don't want to tell us that that's what's going on for reasons that arguably I can understand. You don't want it to be like, well, we think there's a nuclear bomb in, the middle of New Jersey we're trying to find. You can see how that would cause them to say we need to keep our mouths shut on this. But like I said, that's not necessarily a positive explanation either. We are not going to have Congressman Burleson on.
Womp, womp.
This is my fault. This is my fault.
Way to go.
I just received a text from one of his people reminding me that he was actually going to be on a flight, or he's on a flight as we speak, that was preceded by a text message from Thursday that somehow I missed, asking if he could be on in the 6 o'clock hour because he was going to be on a flight during his normal slot. So I missed. I don't know how I missed that text. I mean, I obviously looked at it, or I opened it accidentally because it didn't, you know how your text, the unread text are marked. And
we can have him on later this week because I really would like his insight on
yeah, absolutely.
on the drones.
Yeah, and his let's see, this is Nathaniel from his team. We could do it tomorrow in the 6 a.m. hour or Wednesday 8:15. Let's do tomorrow at 6 a.m. I will text him back, and then let's not forget. And by that, I mean me.
Putting it in the calendar.
Right, excellent. Very good. All right, well, this actually frees up because I was trying to decide what I wasn't going to be able to get to today, and this makes that a little bit easier because I have more time. I wanted to play a story coming up here. We'll do it after we get news and weather. There's this, Travis Timmerman. This is the Missouri guy. He's not a kid, but he's a guy, young man, who was on a pilgrimage over in the Middle East, and he was discovered, I suppose, if you will, after the fleeing of Syria by Assad. He was in a jail there, and he was released as you had these new people taking over, and they were releasing everyone from jail. And here's this American Missouri, guy from up around, or is it pronounced Urbana?
Urbana.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then I thought to myself, I don't know if I've ever actually heard anyone from Urbana talk about being from Urbana, so I just assumed that's how it was. Okay, so that's where he's from, and he headed over there. Well, anyhow, NBC Nightly News, they were over there during all of this chaos, and they were actually looking for, I think, one of their journalists. They were looking for somebody, and they stumbled upon the Urbana guy. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting story, so I'm going to play that audio for you. Where they're talking about how they found him, and now there's video. We'll get the story so you can see the visuals, and because that is significant to the story as well. But you'll get the idea from the sound of the story. So we'll have that coming up here in just a little bit. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy with a high near 51. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
Wilder RV end-of-year deals, some great ones in Clinton, Missouri on 13, just north of Springfield, a little over 80 miles, just over an hour drive. It's a nice drive at that. Many of you pass by if you go to Kansas City from this area, take that route. And people travel from all over the country in order to make their purchases at Wilder RV and to get that end-of-year maintenance or whenever it needs to be done. Sometimes it's unexpected. But it's always good to do sort of an annual as you get ready to put it away for storage for the winter, the cold weather. That way it's ready for you in the spring. They've got package deals on that. And then, like I said, they have end-of-the-year deals on RVs. You can check them out at wilderrv.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. There's a piece in the Washington Examiner that I don't know why, I just find it to be enjoyable. And it is titled, "Trump Can Fire Anybody He Wants Thanks to Sean Spicer." Well, in reality, thanks to the Biden administration. As you know, or maybe you don't know, the administration has been, as best as possible, trying to sabotage the ability of Donald Trump to carry out his duties as president in the way that he sees fit by trying to make certain things permanent, by trying to lock things in, if you will, in a way that they believe will prevent Donald Trump from being able to fire them. But the Washington Examiner notes that President-elect Donald Trump is arriving at the White House armed with a legal weapon that will let him fire any of Joe Biden's appointees. Thanks in part to a court fight former Trump White House spokesman Sean Spicer lost over his firing by Biden from a 3-year term to the Board of Visitors to the United States Naval Academy. The incoming president will have the legal backing to dump any of Biden's over 4,000 appointments who try to stick around. And the best part, Spicer told Secrets, quote, "They'll have no one to blame but Biden himself." Biden's done a lot of things that the Democrats turn around and blame him for. They get quite angry with him. They're fully supportive at the time, like him running for re-election. But when it blows up in their face, they point the finger and blame him. And this could very well be another one of those instances. The case dates back to September 8th, 2021, when Biden began to fire Trump allies from the visitor boards at the academies of the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. Wasn't Lee Greenwood one of those? Remember that story? Mm-hmm. There was a story about, I think it was Lee Greenwood. What was it, him that got fired? Also, he was put on, I think it was Lee Greenwood. It was someone who was put on one of these boards. And I remember it being a story when Joe Biden went around getting rid of these people because these are largely non-political appointments that are made. And so historically, they don't generally get replaced as a political appointment would. They will fill out their terms.
So I found just a headline: Biden removes Lee Greenwood from National Endowment for the Arts.
Yeah, that's what that one was. And that made headlines. Now, the Sean Spicer removal made headlines because Sean Spicer fought it. Spicer and others, including Russ Voigt, just picked by Trump to head the Office of Management and Budget, and former Trump counselor Kellyanne Conway, were unceremoniously dumped despite several of them having time left on their 3-year terms. Spicer and Voigt sued, saying that unlike White House staff or others appointed by a prior president, they could not be fired because of their congressionally mandated terms. They lost, however, when a judge essentially ruled that the president could fire any presidential appointee, whether they had terms or not. There was a further effort that failed as well. Spicer said that is exactly what he hoped the courts would do because he wanted to help a future Trump presidency fire Biden's picks without having its hands tied. Now, I don't know whether or not that's true. I mean, he may be telling the truth. I mean, maybe he had that foresight. He thought Trump's going to get elected again in 4 years, and I want the judicial system to declare that the president has the ability to fire anyone regardless of any sort of congressional connection to it. And so I'm going to fight this so that I lose, so that Trump 4 years from now will have the ability to fight everyone. I don't know, that seems like a little bit of a stretch, as opposed to Sean Spicer just being upset because he got unceremoniously fired and he wanted to be able to keep that job. But maybe, I don't know. In the end, the result's still the same. Spicer said in an interview, quote, "What no one ever understood was this was not about actually getting back on the board because my term had been expired for months. It was forcing them to argue in the affirmative that they had the ultimate authority to fire anyone at the time, which they did, and the court accepted that. So the Biden administration is now on record in court, and the court agreed the president has absolute authority to fire anyone he wants. The whole point is now, on day one, Trump can go in and fire everyone and say it was the Biden folks who told us that we could do this," he said, aiding White House executives who seek to hire the loyal team that Trump wants. And that would be that would be nice. That would be not just the fact that he legally as president of the United States can fire anyone that is part of the executive branch that he wants to, which he should be able to. Any president should be able to do so. They are the head of the executive. And so anyone who works under them should be hired and fired at the will of that individual, whomever the president is. But the fact that this was ruled in a court as such because the Biden administration pushed the issue would make it that much more fun to watch play out. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. There's obviously been a number of local stories about Travis Timmerman, the Urbana guy, I guess is that, I don't know why I'm having a hard time describing this individual guy, who took a pilgrimage overseas and ended up getting caught up in Syria and imprisoned in Syria, and family did not know where he was. And as I've seen a number of the different local stories, obviously, like I said about this, NBC nightly, or I don't know if it was the nightly news, but it was the NBC national broadcast. They had sent someone over there during all of the upheaval, just in the immediate aftermath of the overthrow. And it was because they were searching for someone else when they stumbled upon Timmerman. And I just thought it was a pretty good story. So although you won't see the visuals to it, I thought I would play it for you. And this was their story.
as we drove through Damascus looking for information about missing American journalist Austin Tice. Suddenly, a video appeared online. An unidentified group claimed to have found an American who'd been held by the former regime. We immediately contacted our sources.
Information is coming in piecemeal. The latest that we just heard is that, yes, an American was found, but not Tice, a different American who'd been traveling in the region on some sort of pilgrimage.
He was in a small house packed with rebels, aid workers, and journalists. There on the floor was Travis Timmerman from Missouri. As I pushed in, I knocked our microphone, making it buzz.
Was it been 7 months you've been here?
Yes, I was in prison for 7 months. But it's been okay. I'm on a pilgrimage, and that's when I was arrested.
Timmerman says he crossed into Syria from Lebanon without a visa.
What did they do to you once you were picked up?
I was interviewed to see if I was a political actor. But then they cleared me essentially, and then I was just held in prison. I wasn't beaten.
Timmerman was freed on Monday when the rebels overthrew the government and broke into jails to free political prisoners. He was found today, walking barefoot and alone.
Last night I slept outside, and then the night before that I slept with a friend, and the night before that I slept in an abandoned apartment.
In touch with your family?
I haven't, but I plan to do that when I can.
I was excited, but I was hurt.
Late today, we spoke to his mother and stepfather back in the U.S.
You know, I don't know if he's safe right now.
You said this was a religious mission. Was this sort of like following in the footsteps of Jesus, the road to Damascus, that kind of thing?
Well, God.
He was taken outside to cheers. Now a free man, after his religious journey, met the harsh reality of the modern Middle East.
Timmerman told us he didn't see any other Americans while held captive by the Assad regime and knows nothing about the whereabouts of Austin Tice. Lester?
Richard Engel in Damascus tonight. Thank you.
You know, I don't know really what to say about that whole situation other than it's just crazy, I guess. I mean, we all lead our own lives, and we generally make deliberate decisions to lead lives that are relatively comfortable. And then every so often, though, there are people that just, there's something about them that have this desire to explore, to go way outside what most people would consider to be a normal comfort zone. And it's just so, I don't know, it's such a crazy thing to think that just kind of anyone could find themselves caught up in something on the other side of the world like this. And it's just, and then here, can you imagine your parents, and you have no idea where your son is, and of course you worry about it being the worst, and then here you're watching television, and there he is, and he's been in a jail there for 7 months. He said that he wasn't abused. I read, if it wasn't in that story, another article saying the only thing was that he wasn't, I think, able to use the restroom whenever he wanted to, but other than that, he was fed and given water whenever he needed, and he did look relatively healthy. Of course, you always wonder is, even though he is presumably safe, is he just saying that because he's worried that if he says something else that it could prevent him from getting to safety? That's all information that I'm sure once he gets to safety he can reveal. But at the same time, if he was someone that was not considered to be a threat, you could see where they potentially were just imprisoning him, as opposed to, because some of the torture, these people that were believed to be political dissidents or a danger to overthrow the government, their stories of torture is just horrifically unimaginable. And we know that human rights atrocities, of course, occur in that part of the world as well. But I know, it's just such a crazy story. And it also, I think, shows that sometimes even, and I have no idea, his parents may have felt that perhaps he was safe it isn't uncommon whenever somebody disappears in that part of the world for the period of time that they do to worry that there is no hope and that they are no longer alive. And then, 7 months later, find out that apparently relatively unharmed and by appearances pretty healthy is, a reminder that, sometimes even if there is a situation that suggests giving up hope might be appropriate, it's not always the truth. Springfield's Talk 104.1 coming up. You don't remember, Sarah, the Duke lacrosse fiasco, do you? Does that even resonate with you, the Duke lacrosse players?
No.
So this was, and many of you are going to remember this, a situation that became national news and that the Al Sharptons of the world were in front of, and you had a black stripper who accused Duke lacrosse players of raping her. And of course, because of the culture we live in, they were presumed to be guilty. And there were people that were just, horrific in their public reaction to this, even though there wasn't any evidence that it actually occurred. Well, the accuser, Crystal Magnum, has come out and admitted she made it up. That next, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the morning and then mostly cloudy skies with a high around 51. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 34. For your Tuesday, cloudy and breezy with a high near 55. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
KSGF.com, a couple of things to keep in mind while you are over there, reasons that you should visit. Local for Less, this is coming up 10 a.m. on Friday. Five Guys. For just $12.50, get $25 gift certificates for Five Guys. Again, that will go live 10 a.m. on Friday at KSGF.com. And also Christmas in the Ozarks. Looking for area parades, light displays, places to see Santa, you can head over to KSGF.com. Christmas in the Ozarks. That's sponsored by Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. And today, tomorrow is the final day for you to get the presents in for the Santa's Angels kids. If you haven't done so, like I said, you do have till tomorrow. However, if you can conveniently bring them by today, if you have not done so, then I know Sarah would be pleased as punch.
Yes, please.
If you adopted a kid or more than one kid and for reasons beyond your control, you are going to be unable to follow through, just let us know. because it will be no problem whatsoever to make sure those kids are taken care of. And that's ultimately the goal. I know sometimes, your heart is bigger than your wallet, or things do happen. They pop up, unexpected expenses pop up, and you're just like, man, we're not going to be able to cover this after all. But then you're kind of embarrassed, and you don't want to admit, you don't want to be seen as not following through. Trust me, we all know these things happen. Just let us know. That way we can make sure that that specific kid is taken care of. And like I said, that won't be a problem to do. We just have to know about it. And speaking of unexpected expenses, your vehicle is one of those that oftentimes you have unexpected expenses pop up. A1 Custom Car Care for all of those needs. You guys, what you talked about, what to keep in your vehicle, what if you're in an accident, this last Saturday?
Correct.
And what was the other thing that you guys talked about?
Basic just winter car maintenance, things that kind of pop up this time of year. So kind of items just to keep on your radar.
If you missed it, the on-demand section's at ksgf.com. And, of course, this upcoming Saturday, 10 a.m., you probably have not formulated a show yet, or have you?
We kind of have. So we're teaming up with All Out Law with Kyle Wyatt that runs before our show. And I think we've done this
Yes,
2
you
or
have.
3 years.
I was on one of them, I think.
Well, we're going to put you on this year, but I might invite you in.
What
We'll see. I don't know yet.
We'll
figure it out. But basically, we just talk holiday stuff. I know we're going to talk about the holiday travelers expected to close out 2024. So we're going to talk about the best and the worst times to hit the road for Christmas, New Year's, all that good stuff. So it's one of our topics.
There you have it, everyone. After almost 2 decades, Duke lacrosse accuser finally admits she destroyed lives with a lie. Crystal Magnum, an exotic dancer who falsely accused 3 innocent Duke lacrosse players of rape and destroyed their lives, has finally admitted she lied. In 2006, Magnum accused the 3 men of rape after a party. The false accusations ignited a national firestorm and engaged the race rage apparatus. Magnum was recently interviewed from prison, where the darling of the liberal media is serving time after she was convicted of second-degree murder for the 2013 stabbing murder of her boyfriend. Didn't know that. Magnum told Let's Talk with Kat host Katerina de Pascal, quote, I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong, and I betrayed the trust of a lot of other people who believed me. I made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God. She added that she hopes the men will forgive her. Quote, I want them to know that I love them and they didn't deserve that, and I hope that they can forgive me. Duke University released the following statement announcing a settlement from back in 2007 in which it was largely recognized that this was a lie, noting that this has been an extraordinary year for Duke students David Evans, Colin Finnerty, and Reed Seligman, who were accused of serious crimes they did not commit. In April, after a thorough review, the North Carolina Attorney General declared that they were innocent of all charges and that the charges never should have been brought. We welcome their exoneration and deeply regret the difficult year they and their families have had to endure. They conducted themselves with great dignity during their long ordeal. So it was back in 2007 when it was recognized that, in fact, these allegations were made up. And the individual who prosecuted the case, I believe he himself ended up going to jail. I don't know if it was because of this case, but for ethical reasons, in his capacity as a prosecutor, if memory serves. You know, this was a high-profile case in which a segment of the American population, without there being any evidence or any proof, let alone evidence that this had actually even occurred, still just made up in their minds that these individuals committed rape when they didn't do it. It's such a surreal thing to watch play out. If your approach is simply to try and figure out what really happened in any given scenario. I mean, this all came once again during the whole Me Too movement. And that is, if you are an individual who there are accusations out there and you are paying attention and your goal is really to, as best as possible, try to figure out what happened. And that's it. Just facts. What are the facts? What do we know? Yet you watch the world around you, including the media, that demonstrate that is not of interest to them whatsoever. It doesn't, they just sort of pick a side, usually based off their own biases, and then they champion that side. And furthermore, if you're not on their side, they demonize you. And that's what happened in the public discourse with the Duke lacrosse situation. If you were a person who stood up and said, well, now wait a minute here, her story isn't adding up and there is no proof. You know, there were a lot of things that during all this would come out. I mean, 2 of the individuals she claimed raped her had alibis. There was no DNA evidence there, that they had of them on her. And there were just so many things that while one may have been able to argue doesn't prove they didn't do it, it certainly didn't suggest that they did. Yet to watch like these 3 young guys get accused of rape and then just the mere accusation without any evidence, and again, to the contrary, exonerating evidence, yet they still be treated as if you don't believe her, you're doing something wrong. It was just such a surreal and frankly, in certain capacities, an angering thing, because it becomes clear that there are people that are driving forces when it comes to these sorts of situations that don't care about the truth. It does not matter to them at all. And they will destroy lives over it. The Kavanaugh hearings is another example of this. To see sitting U.S. senators and Congress persons and just anyone that would just openly say, well, we just believe accusers. You know, that's all it takes. Doesn't matter if there's no evidence. In fact, we aren't even going to call them accusers. We'll call them victims because you are just supposed to believe them. Doesn't matter. Does not matter lack of evidence. Doesn't matter if there is evidence that exonerates the accused. I think for a lot of people, I put myself in this category. The Kavanaugh hearings, as those played out, you have the humanitarian side of this, where in one instance, here you have a guy who has a family, and just because, all because he was nominated to be on the Supreme Court, had all these horrific things, these horrific accusations made against him, even though there was no evidence, none. And in fact, what we would learn is that the accuser's story didn't jive with what some of her own allies would provide as information about timelines and the way she acted about certain things and the claims that she would make, that everything pointed to the fact that she probably wasn't telling the truth. But the one thing, again, for an individual whose sole purpose is, okay, what can we really know about this? Here is a person that is pointing the finger at another person, making an accusation. Okay, what do we know? And when the answer is so clearly, well, we don't really know anything. There's no proof or evidence of anything. Yet to see human beings that are supposed to be adults, that are physically adults, that are in positions of power, not care about that whatsoever. Not care. Destroy people's lives. We have these moments in time in which these instances occur. The Tawana Brawley case. It's amazing how many of them Al Sharpton's involved in. You have the case with the Duke lacrosse players, in which, like the Tawana Brawley case, in which you had Al Sharpton and, some of the others on the left that were claiming white police officers raped a young black girl and threw her in her dumpster, and that turned out to be a lie, just like the lacrosse accusations turned out to be a lie. And it doesn't matter There's, for, I guess, our culture, we choose not to learn from this. I believe that there are some human beings who do, particularly if it's their first rodeo at a public accusation in which the public at large is weighing in and pointing fingers, and I'm on this side, I'm on that side, that maybe they, in retrospect, individuals will look at it and go, gosh, you know what, maybe I should not make assumptions. Maybe I should not jump to conclusions, because sometimes innocent people get falsely accused of horrific things for a number of reasons. And while I believe good, honest people do take that time to reflect, and it is something you have to be proactive in, because it is easy to want to take sides, particularly when you have a political component to it, and the side that's not your side is on one side, and so, politically, if they're over here, and so by instinct you want to believe that what they're saying isn't true, but you've got to be, we all do have to be proactive, and okay, that really isn't what matters here. What matters is, what do we have? What information do we have? What can be proven? And sometimes even you think, well, gosh, I kind of think that probably this did happen, but I have to acknowledge that there's no evidence. There's nothing that can indicate what this person is accusing actually, that this thing actually occurred. But we don't seem to grow. We don't evolve. We don't improve when these instances occur. In fact, we seem to get worse. From Tawana Brawley to the Duke lacrosse to, and I'm sure there are many, the Olympic bomber in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, this was another instance in which there was a movie made about it, where you had this, and of course, it was the FBI seemed to be leading the charge to falsely accuse somebody of planting that bomb, in which he was completely and totally innocent, but everybody just jumped on the bandwagon, even though there wasn't any real hard evidence that showed that he actually was responsible for it. Then I mentioned the Kavanaugh case, which is one of the most prevalent. The rape accusations against Donald Trump, in which he was found not liable for rape, hence ABC settling. Increasingly, unfortunately, what seems to happen is, particularly people on the left, to be honest with you, care less and less about whether there's any truth to it. If it is their political opposition that is being accused, they are not just on board, but they are recruiting others to be as well. This Magnum gal who is from prison, which I didn't realize she was in prison for second-degree murder, acknowledging that she made it up, which is a good thing to do, even though this has been known for some time. I suspect that there is a component here. I haven't listened to the entire podcast. There's a story, the Gateway Pundit has the excerpts from it, in which she talks about how she hopes that they can forgive her, and that the reason she made up the story was because she was looking for validation from people, not from God. This is part of the problem, isn't it? That she was getting validation. Our culture not only oftentimes rewards this sort of behavior, but it encourages it. Especially now. I mean, we've seen over the past several years a rash of people going viral, news stories covering, here is a server at a restaurant, and somebody wrote a homophobic slur on my receipt, and now I have a GoFundMe page, and there's news, and I'm getting tens of thousands of dollars, and then it turns out it didn't happen. Or here, we've seen this in Springfield. A person of color out for a jog, somebody smears dog feces on the individual's Jeep, I think it was. Turns out it was a case of mistaken identity. But, of course, this is all put through the lens of hate crime. Oh, it's because this is a person of color. Everybody just jumps on board. No evidence whatsoever. If there's any sort of building that is generally occupied by a certain group of people and there's vandalism, well, we know why it is. You know, these assumptions that get made, and the people are rewarded for making the assumptions. It's a very divisive and very damaging thing to do to individuals, to culture, to people. And while this is somebody who is already serving prison time, the other aspect of this that feeds into it is, even at the time when it was determined she made this up, there's no punishment. We allow people to make false accusations, and let's be honest about it, as long as it's about a certain demographic of person that you falsely accuse of something, if it is proven that you falsely accuse them of committing a crime, you don't have to worry about getting in any trouble. You and I are, of course, generally taking a different approach to any and all of these different scenarios and situations than so many others do, but I think we should always encourage people to not accuse others of things, especially when they're horrific things, if there is not evidence of it. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light, tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate a reliable, easy drinking experience with an ABV of 3.8%. The Golden Elixir, tribute to the industrious spirit that defines the heartland from Kansas Territory Brewing. Bradford Light in area Macadoodles and Price Cutters. You can find it there. Duke Lacrosse case was the beginning of the Me Too movement. I mean, it's certainly... whether one wants to see it as the beginning, I mean, it reflects the behavior. You have a certain class of, and this is how we are in the United States today, that if you are in a certain category or there are enough check marks next to your name and you make an accusation against the right type of person, you are expected to be believed. It's also an amazing reflection on how upside down the perception of who has privilege versus who doesn't have privilege in our country. And I suppose it depends on your definition of privilege. This has come up because of, well, it's prevalent in our society, DEI, CRT, all of these damaging social experiments that are put upon us. But with Caitlin Clark talking about how being white, you're privileged. If you are a white person and you are accused of something by a non-white person, odds are not in your favor in terms of public sentiment. That's just the way it is. How it used to be the other way around, and that was just as wrong. If you are a white person and To Kill a Mockingbird was an illustration of that. Did not matter how absurd or how unproven it was. If a white girl pointed a finger at a black guy, that's just the way that it was. It was assumed. In our culture today, if there's one race of people, I made this point last week, that there are certain words you're just not allowed to say. Now, that does not sound like a privileged class to me. Generally, being privileged means you are benefited certain things and certain allowances that no one else is, not the other way around. If you, because of your skin color, are automatically deemed inherently racist, whether you know it or not, that is not really, I don't consider that a real privilege. That's just me. The fact that I am deemed to be racist simply because of my skin color. And if I don't believe I'm racist, that's proof that I am. That does not seem like a very privileged position. I, like many of you, am in the only race that cannot have scholarships specifically for my race. I cannot have a fraternity on a college campus that is specifically only for my race. These do not seem like positions of privilege to me. Yet this gaslighting narrative that the one category of human being in this country that can't have its own scholarships, that can't have its own fraternities, that there are certain words they're not allowed to use, that we're told that is the most privileged class, that I do not think that word means what you think it means. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. We will have Congressman Burleson on after 6:30 tomorrow morning. So if you have any questions, you can text those into the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. We will talk drones. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.